And for those wondering where the Skyline's been, I've actually just been enjoying the car for the most part. I've taken it to a couple shows, a couple little grocery runs, and it's been super good up until we decided to take it roll racing at the drag strip. I think I broke something. I either blew a manifold gasket for the turbo or a turbo gasket, or I'm not hoping the manifold cracked. Something that has to do with that turbo area is leaking heavily and it sounds like a tractor. I'm not going to start it right now, but it's pretty bad. So I did order all the necessary gaskets and pieces to redo the entire turbo manifold, all that stuff. So I'm hoping one of these days I'll tear it all down, see what the problem is, and then go from there, try to get it fixed and put it all back together. So yeah, there's an update on the 34. Also, my wife recently picked up a Mitsubishi Pajero Mini VR2 model. It's actually been our daily driver for couple months now. So I figured I'd do a quick little overview of the wife's daily driver. This is a 1995 Mitsubishi Pajero Mini, and it is the VR2 model. So this is a K car. It is a 4-cylinder turbocharged 660cc engine, selectable 4-wheel drive, 5-speed. It has some really cool options, upgrades, modifications, whatever you want to call it. Really rare parts as well. So as you can guess, she did end up selling the Minitruck. We ran into a few issues, mostly with the carburetor giving us too many issues, and we did end up fixing them, but we actually ended up selling the Minitruck to my younger brother, and he drove it around a little bit, kind of like a daily driver. He enjoyed it for a while, and then he actually just sold it a couple days ago. Sold the Minitruck, and she was after something cool, something small, manual, obviously, right-hand drive, Japanese import kind of thing. Really anything under 10 grand. I actually found these Pajeros, and I thought, man, those are super cool. So we actually found this one on Marketplace for, I think it was like $200 maybe. We ended up paying 8 grand for it. It came from Kansas. I think it was a Kansas City area. The seller was, really helpful. We bought the car and then obviously had it shipped here. Showed up and we were blown away. I mean, this thing is so cool. So yeah, first and foremost, completely rust free. A pretty bad tendency of rusting, so that was our biggest concern with finding one of these. And it does run and drive perfect. Just some normal old car stuff. It's got a little bit of a oil leak, but nothing I would consider major. She's owned this for several months now. She's been daily driving it to work and back. She works at a greenhouse, so get dirty, get in and out of the thing. And of course, it's got really cool upgrades, modifications, some options. The front grille guard, it's got the genuine Mitsubishi fog lights. It does have the front lower little bar thing, which I don't see those often. Full fender mirror, the window visors, spoiler, which is kind of rare I've seen. Spare tire cover is pretty rare as well. I haven't seen those too often, and they're kind of different. There's a rear bumper guard. It is on stock suspension, but it does have some larger General Grabber AT tires, kind of off-brand wheels, but they look really cool with the green. The little tiny baby hood scoop. You can see the intercooler in there. Change out these headlights. These are like your basic Jeep headlights. It's got some cool stickers on it when it came here. Kind of cool as well. It's pretty cool as well. These stickers are sweet to see these on cars. Yeah, so interior, good shape. These K cars, they don't really hold up too well just because of the quality of the material they build them with is very cheap. So, I mean, everything's there. It's just not perfect by all means. The wood grain grip royal wheel, wood grain trim. It's got a boost gauge as well. The wood grain trim on the stereo. The previous owner did do a US head unit, so that's really nice. It's got CarPlay and what seat. You can sit back there, and there is plenty of room. It's got belts, but the dog goes back there mostly. That seat folds down as well, so this is all flat. Plenty of interior room. There's a 5-speed, then selectable 4-wheel drive. Nothing real fancy, just kind of gets the job done. It does have 98,000 kilometers. So moving under the hood, we've got some upgrades. It's crazy how small the 664 cylinder is very small. Here's a picture next to a Jeep. So here's the little tiny baby turbo. Thing is tiny, around 10 psi I think, which is stock. We did throw this on there. This is off my Cappuccino. I did sell that as well, and that's when I bought the van and then sold the van and bought the Miata. Got the Cusco strut brace, some aftermarket horns, HKS radiator cap. Did do plugs and wires on this. There's your little baby intercooler. I also did a few small maintenance items. Our stuff, I did replace the front steering rod bushings. Those are a very common. If you get wobbles on a K car, 99% of the time it's the front steering rod bushings. Also has a backup cam, which is kind of cool. Folds right out. Got our stuff back here. This folds up too, and there's storage back there. Did a muffler delete. It was kind of a DIY job. Nothing too fancy, but overview on the Pajero Mini VR2. Again, super cool car. It's really fun to drive. It's okay gas mileage. I think we get about 25 miles a gallon. Nice and solid, no rust. She's been loving it. Hopefully it lasts, as long as we can. So this is a 1998 Mazda Roadster. Yes, for those avid Miata guys, this is a real Roadster. I've actually owned this car for a couple months now. Interesting story. I had purchased a 98 Honda Acti Street K-Van. I purchased that van about 7 months ago. I always wanted one of the vans, and this actually popped up on Instagram on an account I follow. And it was a really cool van, had some really cool modifications done to it. Van got here, it was in okay shape, ran and drove fine, but the downside of the van was that someone had installed some kind of lowering spring, but the front springs were so compressed that there was no travel at all in the suspension. Really the only solution were one of two things. Obviously were to buy stock suspension for the van, which actually proved to be very difficult. I could not for the life of me find stock suspension anywhere. And number two, the other solution was a set of aftermarket coilovers, which were actually on back order the entire time I owned the van until the day I sold it, funny enough. So again, that van was cool. It was kind of fun to own, but it just ruined the experience owning it with the suspension setup. So I did end up selling it, and I was after something else, right-hand drive, something that, I don't know, was cool. Not necessarily something K-car based, but something smaller, fun. And I had actually saw the ad for this car down in Tampa, Florida. And I had it on my saved marketplace for a while before I even considered buying anything. And then I did some obvious shopping around. I looked around for probably 2 weeks or so. There were a few things that caught my eye. I actually was after a old 70s Corolla wagon, which was pretty cool, but it just wasn't something that I wanted to put myself into. Too much of a project at the time. I kept coming back to this car every time I would get on Marketplace, and the more and more that I looked at it, I really liked this thing. So I ended up talking to the buyer, who actually knew a few guys close to me. And it was a really, really cool guy that imported some cool cars. Like I said, he was down in Tampa, so obviously that would have been an issue, you know, driving it back or shipping the car. But I really wanted to do another fly and drive. So after some back and forth with the seller, I ended up purchasing the car. I actually left a deposit with him, but the plan was to fly from Indianapolis down to Tampa, get an Uber to his place, and then drive this thing back home. So that's exactly what I did. I flew to Tampa. I got an Uber from Tampa to his house, which was super cool. Checked the car out in person. It was everything I had thought of. It had some really cool modifications, in really nice shape, no rust. It's actually a 1998 Mazda Roadster RS. The car has 138,000 kilometers. It is a 6-speed, which is really cool. It also has some normal Miata stuff like a Torsen LSD. It had factory Bilsteins in it. It's obviously got the factory Tupperware kit for the NB1, so, you know, front lip, side skirts, rear mud guards, spoiler. It's also got the fog lights. It's also got some factory strut bracing as well, which is pretty neat. It has this roll bar, which is really cool. It's nice to have in a Miata. Unfortunately, the downside to the roll bar is that the seat will not go all the way back with this bar in place. So there's no way around that. Your options are find another roll bar or remove the roll bar or just deal with it. So I did remove some plastic to kind of give me some more space, but it didn't help out a whole lot. Car also has these really cool Roadster floor mats. The US versus Japanese seats are a little different. I added the shift knob. I did a shifter rebuild kit. I put in a US radio, normal stuff, and then I put in this steering wheel a couple days ago. Car also has ice cold AC. Everything works perfect. No lights, no mechanical issues at all. Then under the hood, it's got some pretty trick parts as well. That's the factory front strut brace. This car also has ABS, which is pretty rare for an NB. Some aftermarket HIDs, not a broken dipstick, which is pretty rare. Front and cowl cover things, whatever they are, they're kind of cool. I did the valve cover gasket, painted the valve cover while I was there, did plugs and wires, which is a funny story. I'll get to that in a sec. I did this intake. That's my beautiful heat shield. Works. Again, I'll get to that in a sec. The car also had some really neat SSR Type C wheels. These are 16x8. Also did Meister R Sport Z coilovers, which are a new coilover from Meister R. They ride perfect, are fully adjustable. I also did the brakes. The pads were pretty bad, so I did new pads. So the funny story with the intake was the car had a really cool ARC aftermarket intake on it, which was super cool. Pretty rare part. I actually ended up selling it for a pretty good coin on eBay. But the problem with the intake was the filter sat directly on the heat shield. And when that happens, you are now sucking in hot air. So with that intake in the worst possible position it could be in, after about 2 hours of driving the car, it would start to surge. Well, at the time, I didn't know what the reason was. I first thought the car developed a misfire, maybe 2.5 hours outside of Tampa. And I was like, all right, this is not good. I'm not going to get home. So I did some brainstorming. The car still ran and drove okay, but any kind of acceleration, it would just kind of fall flat on its face and start bucking and surging. I tried to go as far as I could, and it got a little worse. And I did some looking around and actually found an O'Reilly's that had plugs and wires at the store. So after about 3 hours of driving, I went to the O'Reilly's. I purchased plugs, wires, some tools, and some gloves. And I actually changed the plugs and wires in the parking lot. Everything looked great. Plugs looked fine. The plug wires looked fine. Threw it all back together. Got back on the road, and the car did drive perfect. Well, I thought it was fixed. And lo and behold, another maybe an hour or so after I did that, the car started bucking and surging just like it did previously. So again, red flag. I'm not going to get home. I'm screwed. I continued to push on as much as I could. I did a little more brainstorming, and I pulled into a gas station, popped the hood, checked everything. Everything looked perfectly fine. Vitals were fine. No lights on, nothing. Thought about it a little more, and I thought, you know what? I bet that intake is causing my problems. If I felt the intake piping and the filter, and they were hot. I mean, overheating hot. And I thought, all right, that's my issue. So I tried to pull the filter away from the manifold as best as I could, but you couldn't move it. The actual chamber piece or whatever was too big, and it just wouldn't work. So I continued on my journey home. After about 2.5 hours, I would pull over for gas, pop the hood, let it cool off for 15-20 minutes. And then hit the road, and it was actually fine. The closer I got to home, the cooler it was. As a matter of fact, once I hit Ohio, it was pretty cold out, and the car actually drove fine. So confirmed that the ARC intake was the problem. But that was the funny story of getting this car home. And like half the time I thought, I'm not going to make it home. I'm going to get stranded on the side of the road. This is the worst day of my life, yada, yada, yada. So I got on eBay and I bought the cheapest possible intake you could find for a Miata, and it actually works perfectly fine. And it doesn't get hot or anything, and also doesn't throw any lights on, and it drives perfect now. So do a quick little start up here with this thing. Nice and quiet. I did also add a muffler to the car just to give it a little more volume. Look at that water coming out of there after I washed the thing. Yeah, runs and drives perfect. No mechanical issues at all. Super fun, solid little car. You can get in it, go anywhere you want. Apart from a few little chips here and there, mostly on the front lip, I did touch them up and they look a little better, especially on camera. Not a huge deal at all. I'm perfectly fine with that. The rest of the car is actually in really nice shape other than the front lip. No rust, body's super straight, no dents, no faded paint, no issues anywhere else. The only issue the car does have is the soft top. It is the original soft top to the car. It is a vinyl glass defrost top, which is really cool. The seal around the glass window has started to fail and separate at the bottom and the top. That is the current fix that has been working for the past couple of days, but ultimately it will need to be replaced. And I do have a glass defrost Robbins canvas top with rain rail attached in the box, just ready to go on the car. And I'm dreading doing that because I've seen and heard that it's a bit of a nightmare. So that's going to be an entire day dedicated to replacing the soft top. I also need to get the car aligned, which is actually going to be done here in a couple days. Other than the top and the alignment, the car is pretty much dialed. We're actually going to be taking this thing down to Tail of the Dragon. Miata's at the Gap this year, so we're looking forward to that. So again, quick little overview of the Mazda Roadster. Again, super cool car. Couple cool modifications. Fun, get in and go anywhere car, throw the top down, do whatever you want. Handles great, drives perfect. Super cool car. He loves riding in it, obviously.